AMD stock is absolutely killing it today, and as you guys know, I do have a small position in AMD. Used to actually be my second largest stock in my overall portfolio, but after it climbed very high to like the mid to high $20 range, I did start cashing in a lot of my profits because at that point I had profits of like over 300% in some cases. So I started to cash in a lot of my profits, but I held on to a smaller reduced position for the long term because I do still believe in AMD for all of their future potential. But when looking specifically at today's performance, they jumped by over 20% a day after reporting earnings, which was on the 29th of January. So today we're going to talk about their earnings, what I plan to do with my stock, and what my future outlook is for their company, and much more in today's video. Let's get started. What's up everybody, my name is Ale and welcome to my world of stocks. So when looking at why I decided to cash in some profits in AMD, I can't really give you too much of a reason other than the stock climbed really high, really fast. I was expecting it to climb, but maybe not that fast. And I had profits at that point of like over 300% in some cases. And I just didn't want to lose those profits if we ever end up getting that, that market crash that everybody's been screaming about, every year for the past decade. There are some macroeconomic concerns out there, and I just didn't want to lose all of my profits, so I did decide to cash in some of my profits with AMD, but I still held on to a smaller position because I believe in their future, and their upcoming 7nm product lineup looks very promising, and I do think that it will help them continue to steal a little bit of market share from their competitors like Intel and Nvidia, and help them drive a little bit more of future growth. Which, by the way, they recorded 9% year-over-year growth in their computing and graphics segment for the quarter, which is actually their 8th straight quarter of revenue growth in that segment. Not to mention that I'm also bullish on the gaming industry that is growing by billions of dollars a year, and AMD plays a huge role in that. Not just in PC gaming, but they also power the Xbox and PlayStation home consoles, which will be getting a next-gen refresh probably in the next year or two. Not to mention that the current gens have already sold over 120 million units combined, with the PS4 on track to become the #3 best-selling home game console of all time. However, the stock has been struggling lately right along with Nvidia due to a cryptocurrency crash in prices that made mining less profitable, which led to an oversupply of used secondhand GPUs that are hurting AMD and Nvidia sales. Speaking of which, Nvidia recently took a massive hit just the other day where they actually dropped by over 18% at one point in just a single day. And it's been a little up and down since, but I did decide to open a small position at around $132 per share, but that's only around 5 to 10% of the total position that I want to have in Nvidia, as I expect their stock to remain volatile given that they're expecting sales to come in almost 25% lower year over year in their most recent quarter, with weakness in data center and their new RTX GPUs now selling much worse than they hoped, as their ray tracing technology isn't being implemented enough into games to warrant the higher price tags. In any case, this brings us to AMD's earnings, which they reported yesterday, which was January 29th, and in my opinion, it was a little bit of a mixed bag, but certainly better than what Nvidia seems to be going through in terms of growth. Now, they were able to match analyst estimates for fourth quarter EPS of 8 cents per share, which jumped up from just 1 cent the year prior, but they missed on revenue, which came in at 1.42 billion versus estimates of 1.44 to 1.45 billion, but it was still up 6% year over year, which is definitely a positive sign. And results for the full year look even better, with revenue jumping 23% year over year, highest profitability in 7 years, with non-GAAP net income jumping to over $500 million, reduced debt by 171 million, cash at over 1.1 billion, GAAP gross margin improving by 4 percentage points, and EPS going from a loss of 3 cents per share to a profit of 33 cents per share, or 46 cents on a non-GAAP basis. Still, they did technically miss estimates, but in my opinion, expectations were too high to begin with, considering that it's going to take a couple quarters for AMD to transition from seeing a surge in sales from cryptocurrency mining that has now evaporated. Speaking of which, when looking at guidance, These concerns are leading to AMD guiding for sales to be 1.25 billion next quarter, which is actually a decline of about 24% year over year, and it's also short about 15% from what analysts were expecting. And again, AMD pointed to lower graphic sales because of that excess channel inventory, which is mostly a result of the crypto crash. But despite that guidance for the following quarter looking really bad on a year-over-year basis, the stock actually climbed in after-hours trading by around 8% yesterday, and that led to a cumulative rally today of over 20%, which is pretty freaking incredible. So you gotta imagine that a lot of shorts got squeezed there, and it helped the stock climb even more. So why did the stock climb by so much? Well, part of the reason is that the stock was already being hammered during regular trading hours yesterday and in the previous day thanks to Nvidia's horrible outlook for the quarter, so analysts were expecting it to look just as ugly for AMD. But even though AMD's earnings were lower than expectations, their full year guidance shocked Wall Street as they guided higher than anyone was expecting, and despite the weakness being resulted from the crypto crash. See, analysts were only predicting revenue growth of around 6% for 2019, but AMD is guiding for sales growth of a high single-digit percentage, which is likely to be well above 6%. And again, this is growth that is coming despite the damage that is being done by the crypto crash and the weaker data center performance being projected by both Intel and Nvidia. Speaking of which, AMD CEO Lisa Su, which I happen to be a really big fan of, said that they more than doubled their EPYC processor shipments sequentially and delivered record GPU data center revenue in the quarter. Don't forget that they'll be releasing their 7nm version of their EPYC chips this year, and they also announced new or expanding partnerships with Amazon and Microsoft for their AWS and Azure platforms. And when looking at their 7nm products, they already launched a 7nm Vega GPU and will be releasing their 7nm Navi GPUs later in the year to compete further with Nvidia. And their 7nm Ryzen 3rd generation will compete further with Intel in the CPU market, which, by the way, Su also mentioned that PC client shipments grew more than 50% year over year, and the number of Ryzen systems will increase by 30% in 2019 year over year, with Ryzen laptops increasing by more than 50% year over year, thanks to the high demand they're seeing and projecting in their 7nm products. So I think this more diverse and more competitive lineup of products that are both competitive in price as well as performance, that are built on TSMC 7nm technology, which, by the way, I also own TSMC stock, will help drive that growth that we need to return to normal inventory levels and especially a normal GPU channel. And AMD thinks that this will also help expand their margins, with adjusted gross profit margin increasing from 39% in 2018 to 41% in 2019. So this really comes back to what we've been saying all along on the channel, which is that AMD is going to experience some short-term difficulties because of the cryptocurrency crash, but their new product lineup is looking very robust, and with a lot of potential growth drivers out there, AMD is well positioned to take advantage of them and help them steal some market share and keep that growth alive, looking forward into probably the later half of 2019 especially. Still, I'm just holding my position for now. I did actually cash in about 5% of my AMD position today because I just wanted to cash in some more profits with them. Their trailing PE is still a little high in the 60s. Their forward PE is still in the 30s. So they're just a little too expensive for me to keep buying AMD stock. But I am holding it for the long term. Like I said, I cashed in about 5% of the position today. And, I know a lot of people hate that because, when stocks are going up, they want me to buy. And when stocks are going down, they want me to sell. You might remember that AMD was recently trading like in the mid-teens, and everybody hated the stock, right? When it was going down to the mid-teens, everybody was saying, oh, this stock is going to break $10 a share. It's going to go down to like $5 a share. Everybody was super negative on AMD. Now that AMD is like back to the low to mid-20s, all those same people are going to be saying, oh, now's the time to buy. Now's the time to buy. It's this kind of herd mentality, but I don't do things like that. When a stock goes down, when AMD goes down, that's when I'm actually buying. When AMD goes up, I'm either holding or I'm possibly cashing in some profits. And that's just how I do things. But and the reason why, it's not because I don't believe in AMD. Like, I was having an argument with someone in the comment section not too long ago because they were saying that I'm an AMD bear, which I thought was hilarious, because if there's one person on YouTube that has been like the most bullish on AMD for the past, couple years, it's definitely been me. I mean, I've been preaching AMD for the longest time and not telling anybody to buy it, but I've been saying that I've been very bullish on it. But when it gets to certain levels, you sometimes have to cash in some profits because, AMD can't control any kind of macroeconomic issues. If we end up getting a crash, all those profits will be wiped away. And AMD doesn't pay a dividend. A lot of times I'm much more comfortable holding a stock long term. For example, I bought some AT&T stock today, right? Like I sold some AMD, which was up, and I actually bought some AT&T, which was down like 5% today. And AT&T has a dividend of like almost 7% and a dividend growth history of like 35 years. So if we go through any kind of recession, AT&T will likely increase that dividend even through recessions and things like that. So it's much easier for me to hold a stock like AT&T through difficult macroeconomic conditions, whereas AMD, not so much. A lot of my profits can just be wiped away at any moment. So that's basically what I'm doing with AMD. But again, I'm still holding some of my position for the long term. I think their 7nm products will help them. I think, the next gen of home gaming consoles will help them. And I think they will continue to see a lot of growth in the data center market as well. And so if the stock goes up more, I'll still benefit. I still have a small position. And if it goes down, then I will buy AMD again, which is what I basically always do. When AMD stock crashes and it goes down a huge amount, everybody's bearish on it, I usually end up buying. So anyway, that's my strategy. Let me know what you guys are doing. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts in the comment section below. I know that a few other stocks are reporting earnings today, like Facebook and Tesla, Microsoft, but I will be making separate videos for those in the future, and I plan on doing some full analysis videos on like Facebook and Microsoft. So if you guys want to see those videos, make sure you let me know by hitting the like button. Thank you for all the support. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.